Hello and welcome to the Beat Cancer Answer, brought to you by BeatCancer.Org, the Center for Advancement in Cancer Education. We believe that 90% of all cancers could be eliminated through environmental and lifestyle choices alone, and science agrees. Unfortunately, most people don't know it, so we provide the education that can help you prevent, cope with, and beat cancer through diet, lifestyle, and other immune-boosting approaches. On every podcast, we will feature an expert who can teach us how to become part of that 90% who could prevent getting diagnosed with cancer. If you already have cancer, we have empowering information for you too. Over the past 35 years, we have helped thousands of cancer patients get back into the driver's seat when it comes to their personal journey of healing cancer and preventing future reoccurrence.
Listen now as BeatCancer.Org Community Outreach Director Debbie Melamed interviews Maria Uspenski on the unmatched health benefits of tea, explained in her new book, Cancer Hates Tea.
Hello. Today we have with us Maria Uspenski. She is the founder and CEO of The Tea Spot, a producer of craft tea blends and single estate organic teas based in Colorado. She is an MIT mechanical engineer by trade and the innovative force listed on 3 U.S. patents for steepware inventions, which promotes the ease of tea preparation. After her own battle with cancer, Maria extensively researched tea and discovered hundreds of studies that showed how powerful a 5-cup-a-day steeping habit could be. Her message is simple and powerful. Tea in its freshest form is sustainable, renders exceptional flavor, and has unmatched health benefits. You can order quality tea and steepware from her website, www.theteaspot.com. And her forthcoming new book, Cancer Hates Tea, is coming out in December and can be pre-ordered on Amazon.com. So welcome, Maria. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you. Yes, it's a pleasure for me as well.
Great. When I started reading your book, I could hear through your words the heart-wrenching ordeal that you went through with your cancer diagnosis. The intensity of emotion comes through and your passion for helping others understand cancer and what a powerful tool tea can be in our anti-cancer arsenal. And I really loved your book. I have to tell you, I was so enjoying it, and the information was so empowering that I got up in the middle of chapter 1 and got some matcha tea and made myself a cup. I thought it was really incredible information. So happy that we have this information. So can you tell us about your story and how long you've been cancer-free?
Yes, and first of all, that's great to hear because that really is the point of my book, is to try to get people to just make this, very easy, healthy habit a part of their everyday.
Yes.
I've been cancer-free now for 12 and a half years. July 9th, 2004 is when I got my freedom diagnosis.
That's great.
And yes, that's certainly what I tend to focus on because really the kind of the dramatic crisis of when you find out that you're ill. I mean, first I think you're thinking, well, this can't be real. This can't be me. What's going on? Am I in a dream? If I talk to someone else, will this go away? And you find yourself going from just your life as we all tend to live, I feel, especially in Western cultures, as though we'll be around forever, to all of a sudden, and especially when you're young, being faced with the fact that we are mortals.
Right.
And, your parents are still living, everybody's healthy, and all of a sudden your mortality is in question. And you're on this treadmill from that point on that just, you're a hamster who just can't get off this ridiculous exercise bike that you've just been thrown on.
Yeah, devastating.
Yeah, and you can't take a break from it either. I mean, we all get into difficult situations, be it either in a job or a relationship, but most of these things we can take a break from. This is something that once you're dealt that card, you're with it.
Right.
And there's no break from it. Your focus needs to be on that, and yet you need to figure out how to keep or regain your wits because, of course, I think a lot of us are thrown for a loop when we get to that point.
Sure.
I think the other thing that was very difficult for me that I actually don't talk about in the book is, and as wonderful as all healthcare professionals, literally every last one that I ran into in whatever point of my treatment and care were to me, it was a serious blow to my self-image. It makes me sound like an egomaniac, but you think of yourself as being healthy. You're living a healthy lifestyle. You're a young mom and you try to keep your kids healthy. And all of a sudden, you're being treated as though you're sick. And I say as though you're because, of course, the medical professionals were able to grasp the fact that I was ill a lot faster than I was.
So you didn't feel sick?
No. I mean, I felt weak. I was tired. In retrospect, you look at those quiet symptoms of ovarian cancer, and yeah, I had them all, but it's often so difficult if it's not a very blatant symptom.
I see.
We don't have experience with any other bodies. We only have our own body. And at each age, that's the only time that you'll ever be, 32 or 40 or whatever. And so we don't really know what that feels like. And
sure.
I was a single mom and I was tired. I had my own business. I mean, it's just, yeah, sure, I'm tired. And sure, once in a while we get bloated. But again, in retrospect, I could have been more in tune with my own body. Yeah.
Okay. Was tea something you considered right after you were diagnosed?
And in terms of a treatment type of option, no. I had always enjoyed tea. Right after my diagnosis, it was something that I did continue and perhaps did in a more kind of ritualistic fashion every afternoon with my children because it was grounding and also because that time of day was one when I could count on being in good shape. I always made sure that when I picked them up from school or when they came home from school that I was at my best. I couldn't always guarantee that I would either make it through dinner or be really present after dinner, but those after school hours between 3 and 5 were what I tried my very best to always be on for. And the way that we would celebrate the end of the school day every day was with tea. And, we certainly made it into a bit of a snack or a meal and did different kind of pairings. And just that was rather coincidentally what worked for me from a very, personal perspective, or social perspective, I should say, even though it was a tiny little social circle of me and either some close girlfriends or myself and their children and my daughters. So initially it was just part of my everyday ceremony and felt good.
Yeah, like a comforting.
Exactly, yes. And the time of day was also just a convenient one for tea. Later on, after I had hope that I was going to get through this, is when you of course start to consider life post-cancer. And, the first thing you say is, well, what in the world did what did I do wrong to get sick? I think a lot of us tend to blame ourselves and think, I didn't think that there was any way that I could be genetically predisposed because neither my mom nor any of my grandmothers at that time had cancer. Environment-wise, I thought that I lived a perfectly healthy lifestyle. I was active. I thought we ate very well. But the more I researched, the more I realized, well, there are more things I can do. And I followed a strictly macrobiotic diet for probably a couple of years afterwards. And in many of the things that I looked to in terms of, okay, so where can I get, kind of the most powerful source of natural polyphenol antioxidants, tea kept coming up in the studies. And there was one study in particular At the time, I assumed that my cancer had to have been environmentally induced, and it was dealing with women who'd been in the vicinity of the bombing of Hiroshima. And although it wasn't my specific cancer, it was for women who had it was a study on breast cancer. It showed that if they weren't blown away by the initial effects of the bomb and just exposed to radiation, that those who drank 2 cups of tea a day had a significantly lesser chance of getting cancer, and those who drank 5 cups of tea a day had 80% less incident of cancer.
Oh, wow.
So that was enough for me to say, okay, done. I can do this 5 cups a day, and it was a Japanese study, so the 5 cups were fortunately 6-ounce servings and not our 16-ounce big gulp U.S. type servings.
Right.
And but more importantly, each one of those cups is prepared with on the order of 2 grams of fresh tea leaves. And that was something that was difficult to source in the U.S. at that time. We didn't have too many green teas 15 to 20 years ago. We didn't have too many Japanese high-quality teas. And so I, of course, got on it and was sourcing these green teas. And at the same time, as you would discover if you read the book, I found out about matcha, which I'd never had previously, a powdered green tea. Actually, I did have it once when I was on a business trip in Japan. I went to a green tea ceremony and, never thought twice about it. I don't even know if I realized that it was prepared with powder at the time. But, yeah, that was just an easy and has been really a non-negotiable part of my daily regimen since that time.
Well, that's really interesting. So how did you come to decide to write the book?
Yes, that's actually, I had always, I don't think of myself as a writer. We do, of course, a lot of writing in the course of our business in terms of promoting tea education and even right down to descriptions of our teas on our packages or our website. But that comes with great difficulty to me. I don't enjoy writing. However, as you can probably tell, I don't have too much trouble talking to people. So we were approached by Page Street Publishing about 1.5 years ago. They were interested initially in doing a tea cookbook. And I thought, oh, goodness, I'm not a culinary person, but I think they'd read some blog posts that I'd done on tea and food pairings and some tea recipes and approached us. And one thing led to the other, and I said, look, I'd be interested in doing this if it had a health bent to it. And then they took it a step stronger and said, let's make it an anti-cancer tea book.
Wow, that's great.
And yeah, and that really resonated with me. So although it was a struggle, it was a wonderful challenge and actually very clarifying and therapeutic in a lot of ways to get my story and my information together and put it in a succinct set of chapters. And honestly, I enjoyed every minute of writing the book.
Wow, that's great. Can you give us an overview of the book?
Surely. Yeah, I really go through the book the same way that I came to tea and thought about tea and learned about tea. So it starts with essentially a primer on what is cancer. And I think a lot of us, when we are diagnosed with cancer, it's such a catch-all term for a set of over 100 different diseases that can pop up anywhere in your body and in anyone of any age, and even animals and plants. But I think a lot of us don't have, and I still don't have a huge grasp on exactly what the mechanisms are, but I very much wanted to understand, okay, if I'm going to work to get this disease out of my body, I need to understand exactly how it's working in there and what can help it along, what can help thwart it, what exactly is happening to make this disease proliferate. So the first chapter of the book is literally, I try to make it a real C-spot run primer on how cancer works and what is it, what are the chemicals in tea that can slow that process down, or, as we would all hope, keep it at bay or reverse it.
Sure.
And so from there, we move to the next part of the book is a series of chapters that address how much tea do we need to drink to actually have an anti-cancer effect, why it's important to steep fresh tea leaves, and addresses, again, the difference between what you can find in grocery tea bags or premium tea bags or loose tea.
Yeah, I found that very interesting because really it doesn't have to be that expensive.
No, it's so interesting. Yeah, when I actually went through the numbers, and so you would have caught this in the book, you can take the person who would have essentially the most elitist kind of tea habit versus the guy who's really, or person who's doing it purely for the health reasons but is very frugal about it. Their budgets are not all that different.
Right.
And really, for $30 a month, you can have a fantastically healthy and tasty tea habit.
I don't think Americans realize that the tea bags in the supermarket they don't contain much health benefit at all.
No, of course we don't. I mean, why would we? They're all screaming, a lot of them, and even what gets to me even more is that a lot of the bottled and canned beverages are screaming, tea and healthy type packaging and messaging, where in reality they have only trace elements of the active ingredients in tea. So yeah, that's a bit misleading. And of course, tea is not the only product that is subject to that kind of marketing spin.
Right.
But,
and then you're getting a lot of sugar, and it's in plastic, and it's probably
totally
doing more harm than good.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then there's an entire chapter devoted to matcha, because really it's a little bit different than leaf green tea. It is just leaf green tea that is powdered down, but it's both very easy to consume, initially a little bit tricky to make perfectly, but again, easy once you know the rules. And I think that's a lot of the trouble with actually lower grade tea bags and just green teas in general in the US. We're not brought up, it's only recently that you'll go into a cafe and ask for green tea, and they'll sit back or add some cold water and say, we don't want the water to be too hot because we don't want to burn the leaves. And I literally almost did a backflip in a James Bond movie that I saw a few years ago. I forget which one it was. But all of a sudden he's sitting with some very, high-end kind of bad guy, and the bad guy says green tea, and he specifies, please, water at 170 degrees or something, or let the water cool for 2 to 3 minutes before we steep it. I said, oh my goodness, I love this bad guy. He knows his green tea. But making it correctly will both yield a healthier and tastier product. So that's important. The book also addresses cold brewing tea, which makes it, we love our iced teas in the States.
Yes.
And that's, of course, why a lot of the ready-to-drink teas do so well. But you can so easily just cold brew, a healthy, full-leaf tea on the go. And then there are a few chapters that address, taking care of your heart, your level of fitness, your practice of meditation and or yoga, and your socialization, which are all also wonderful tools and weapons against cancer and other diseases.
I really found that part really interesting when you were talking about how yoga, some of the difficult poses are more about getting you out of your brain and into your heart, and how getting in the present moment, you need to shed all of your stress in order to do that. And I just thought that was fascinating.
Yes. And of course, cancer really doesn't care if you're an expert yogi and able to, do the split and get your leg wrapped around your head or not. I mean, what is going to affect your disease or, the onset of any kind of, or your immune system, most importantly, is, again, getting into the present moment and getting into that meditative state, which research has shown has tremendous health benefits.
Yes. It could be playing a musical instrument.
Absolutely.
Or
riding a mountain bike down a dangerous ravine. Yeah.
Right,
you name it. If you're 100% on it, then your body's with you and working on you and not stressing.
That's really an important point. That was big for me, because we're always so in the moment, and we're so into being productive and working and never stopping. And I think making that connection to something that takes you from your brain into your heart, where you can release all the stress, is really huge.
Yeah, and I did learn. I mean, of course, we all grow up with some activities that we tend to focus on very hard, but I only learned about yoga and meditation actually when I was as a cancer, and I hate the term survivor, so to speak, as a post-cancer, post-disease individual.
Right.
And I love that. And at first, of course, it's very difficult when someone says sit and think about nothing, but you can just as easily think about nothing by thinking very hard about something very tiny. And that's how I ultimately got some success with meditation, was through the practice of yoga, which you're just saying to yourself initially, like, are you kidding me? I'm not going to be holding that pose. But if you think about nothing but, you'll eventually get closer to doing it. And then at the end of that practice, you're like, wow, I haven't been this relaxed in a very long time.
And you can couple that with tea.
Exactly. And so there are teas that can enhance your meditative experience. And a big molecule that pops up in the book again and again is, we're all familiar with caffeine and different caffeine levels in different teas, but an amino acid that is almost exclusive to tea. It only appears in one other natural substance, and that's a mushroom, is L-theanine. And that amino acid is actually now, people make supplements of it to give to ADHD children. So it allows you to focus while calming you. And of course, it's most prevalent in green and white teas. And, you kind of have this light bulb moment that says, oh, now I understand why the, Zen Buddhist monks were such big fans of this tea. I mean, did they even know the chemistry in the tea, or did they just experimentally figure out that when they drink this tea, they're better able to meditate?
So you called it a combination of a chill pill and brain juice. Which I thought was really neat. And it lowers blood pressure too.
Yes. Yeah. No, there are a lot of reasons to, again, change your life up a bit, and it's not a huge intrusion. It's so interesting in our little tea business here. Oftentimes, well, I'd say probably 50% of the time we hire either people who are very passionate about tea before they get here, or that come to us with a certain skill but aren't tea drinkers. And they all ultimately become pretty passionate tea drinkers. And it's not as though we're trying to, espouse this as a requirement for, job security or anything. They see other people drinking. Of course, we've got tons of teas in our kitchen and the steepware that make it easy to steep up. And ultimately, it makes people feel better, so they drink it.
Plus, you said the loose teas are much tastier, and most of America has never even really experienced that.
Yeah. That's
so I guess
true.
Once you really...
Yes, I've had the pleasure of serving a lot of people their first cup of loose leaf tea or whole leaf tea. I mean, whether it's
a higher quality
tea, and that's steeped correctly. Again, the green teas, if you hit them with boiling water, they will be bitter or you oversteep them. In fact, I will just go right out there and admit I oversteeped my green tea this morning. I start every morning with green tea, and I got distracted and got an email overnight and looked at it, and then when I poured the tea out, I was like, oh, my first one is like a pretty nasty pea soup. But at that point, I say, okay, so you've gotten your polyphenols from it at least, but next time let's make it tasty as well.
Right. And then it also increases GABA, I saw in your book, which lowers the nerve cells responsible for stress.
Yes, yeah, and the cortisol levels as well, which are the stress hormone, which, of course, not only makes us feel unhappy and jittery, but is a great boost to disease.
Right.
So,
and a lot of people have cortisol issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you were talking about in the book, too, how most of the world drinks tea and not much coffee, and here we drink a lot of coffee and not much tea. But there's such great health benefits to tea that I think it's interesting that maybe, that switch can be made if people realize the health benefits.
Absolutely,
yeah.
And it's
I'm thinking about it.
like a 3-to-1 versus 1-to-3 for the rest of the world. So we drink, on average in the U.S., 3 times as much coffee as tea. And whereas in the rest of the world, it's 3 times as much tea as coffee. And again, on average, there are coffee cultures and tea cultures. And of course, the big tea cultures, namely China and India, are huge population centers as well. So, yeah, it's a switch, which again, in this day and age, it's easy to source. I would say at least relatively easy. Everyone has access to online shopping, even if in your community you might not have the best teas, but there are great tea shops pretty much everywhere. I remember when I first got into a tea habit, I always took my tea with me on the road. And now I really don't need to. You can find great teas pretty much anywhere you go in the States.
And on you had a great website. I was looking at all the different teas. It looks like so much fun.
Yeah, no, it is. It's a lot of fun, and no, we love our customers, and no, I just honestly coming into my business every day it's like a honeymoon over and over again. I knock on wood and count my blessings. We are a very lucky group to be together. There are 15 of us here, and we love what we do and love our work.
Well, it's so neat because there's ceremony to it, and it's comforting, and it can be social.
Absolutely.
But the health benefits really seem amazing. You were talking about in your book that tea ranks higher than most fruits and vegetables in antioxidants and vitamin C and K.
Yes, and it is the number one source of polyphenol antioxidants in the human diet. So that's another thing, which honestly, I didn't even know that until I started researching my book. But
so as far as antioxidants go, that is anti-inflammatory then, and that is what helps ward off cancer. I don't know if people understand.
Correct.
If you want to explain a little bit about that.
Yes. So antioxidants work to neutralize free radicals that are formed in our body. And we've all heard that term, but free radicals are essentially cells that have started to go awry. And what will cause inflammation and then potentially cancer is when those cells going awry actually start to mutate their DNA, their RNA, and then their DNA.
Okay.
And that DNA is your genetic code. So when you're born, you have this genetic map that essentially has already got wired into it, what you're going to look like at each age, what you will be predisposed to or not. And that's your master plan. And in general, our DNAs are wired to keep us healthy. But when we expose our body to toxins, be that environmental toxins or smoke from cigarettes or alcohol or nasty things in our diet,
and a lot of stress.
Or a lot of stress, exactly, that can start to make these free radicals to form. So your cells start to go a little bit crazy. And every day your immune system wipes out literally thousands of cells that have started to go nasty. I mean, this happens to all of us every day. And it's when your immune system can't keep up, when all of a sudden the balance of cells going awry versus the number of antioxidants that are available in your body. When the balance goes in favor of the nasty cells, then some of them can start to build inflammation and get a modified genetic code, which then can turn into a cancerous cell, then a bunch of cancerous cells. And that's, of course, the danger once a cancerous cell or group of cancerous cells is present in your body. Those multiply far more quickly than your normal cells.
Okay.
And so at that point, it's tough to get that balance back.
So as inflammation is mounting, these antioxidants are a weapon.
Exactly. To keep it down, keep it at bay, and keep your immune system in charge.
So, of course, we have all the colorful fruits and vegetables, but
Exactly.
tea ranks even higher. So we get a lot of bang for our buck, and I guess hence comes the 5-cup a day.
Exactly. Yeah, and that seems to be the ideal amount. Certainly, like any good thing, too much can start to create other kinds of issues, but 5 to 6 cups a day, with a cup being 6 to 8 ounces, so anywhere between 32 and 40 ounces of tea a day, of, again, fresh brewed tea, is really the way to go.
And is it any type of, could it be white, green?
Well, a lot of the studies, most of the studies relating to tea's health benefits come from green tea drinking cultures, namely Japan and now some more China. All teas have essentially the same number of polyphenol antioxidants in them. The green and white teas are more prevalent in the catechins, which are a subset of polyphenol antioxidants. And there's even a star player within the catechin family called EGCG, which is most prevalent in green and white teas.
Okay.
That is the one that is shown to be most powerful. It is also present in black tea, but in not as large a proportion. However, there are still so many studies going on with tea and its immune benefits. I always tell people, of course, I always get the question, which tea is the healthiest one for me to drink? And my answer is always the same. Drink the teas that you love the most, because they're the ones that you'll drink the most of.
Okay.
It's
because
hard
they
to
all
keep
have
up
benefits.
a habit if it's not fun. And
I didn't realize that the different teas came from one plant, too. The oolong, black, it was just the way they were dried, treated.
Exactly.
I never knew that.
One species, and then there are 2 subspecies, and then a bunch, of course, of different varietals. But it's one species of plant, which is so interesting. Yeah.
That really is interesting.
It's all in the processing. So tea is like, if you think about, any leaf that you would take off a tree, it's going to start to wither and then get darker with time as it gets more oxygen in it. It essentially starts to dry out and rot, much like a potato or a banana might as well, or an apple that you cut up. And that's really what's going on with the black tea, is it's getting more oxidized, and that makes it darker as it's exposed to oxygen. And so if you take a fresh tea leaf and then immediately dry it out, it becomes a tea product right away, and that's the closest thing to a fresh tea leaf. If you just took it off the tree, took all the moisture out, and then it doesn't change anymore chemically. If you don't take all the moisture out right away and let it hang out for, be that a day, 2 days, 2 to 3 weeks, you'll get different levels of oxidation, in that leaf. And then when you finally do go through that final drying and kill step of the tea leaf that allows it to be a finished tea product, those different teas will have different levels of oxidation and different mixes of polyphenol antioxidants in them.
Okay. And then the matcha green tea, I thought was so interesting. You said it's like drinking your vegetables. So how's that different?
Well, it's different because when we make tea, we normally, drench for lack of a better term, steep the tea leaves in water, and then we pull them out. So what we're drinking is an infusion of those leaves. We're not actually consuming the leaves. And so the big difference with matcha, and again, why I felt it was important to address it separately, is that those are actually powdered green tea leaves that you're then drinking a diffusion of in your beverage. You're actually you're consuming the tea leaf.
Okay.
In its entirety. I mean, it's powdered form, but that's where it's different, is it's not an infusion of those leaves. It's actually the whole powdered leaf, and boom, there it goes into your body. And the beauty of matcha is that you can either drink it in the traditional way, which is essentially a little foamy beverage, which is just made with powdered green tea and water, or you can put it in a latte, you can put it in a smoothie, you can mix it with brewer's yeast and salt and put it on your popcorn. You can put it, sprinkle a little on top of goat cheese. There's a whole chapter of recipes with matcha in the book as well. Everything from breakfast recipes to full meals to snacks to desserts that you can always, it's easy to sneak. I love to put a half teaspoon of matcha into Greek yogurt. It makes it so tasty.
So you don't have to put it in hot water then to get the benefit?
No, absolutely not. No, you can, if I haven't done it yet, but you can just guzzle it straight, the dried powder out of the bag. Yeah.
Very interesting. It's a pretty color too. You can see
it is
the green color.
Yes. No,
Very
it's a lovely product and made with great care. It has its roots in Chinese culture in the 9th century, but it was really embraced by the Zen Buddhist monks who brought it to Japan and have turned it into such an important part of Japanese culture. Even to the point of, and you would have read this in the book as well, Debbie, that kamikaze pilots during World War II, when their number was called to go do their final flight, the last ceremony that they had as a send-off was a matcha green tea ceremony.
Wow, incredible.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering if people are listening that are actually in the middle of their cancer battle and they're going to adopt a 5 cup a day tea habit. Would you prefer that they had matcha green tea?
That's a difficult question for me to answer because I feel that things have changed and different doctors and different regimens while you're undergoing treatment. Some of them say, and I was told not to have any caffeine whatsoever while I was ill. So I didn't have any caffeine at all, and I didn't have any green teas until afterwards.
Until after treatment?
Yes, I do know of people today, and that's because some chemos they rely on your body being at its most inactive state in order to do their job, and caffeine will take you out of that state.
Okay.
However, I do have some close friends that are going through cancer treatment and have gone through cancer treatment more recently, and they were actually encouraged to drink green tea during their treatment. So I think that's one that you really need to defer to your medical professional in terms of, do I drink this while I'm undergoing treatment? But afterwards, I think people will uniformly, undoubtedly support your green tea habit.
So it could be regular green tea leaves or matcha green tea?
Absolutely, yeah.
Or a mixture
Matcha is
of
just
that?
easy, and that's one, again, when you're busy and i- initially a steeping tea 5 times a day habit might seem like, wait a minute, I don't have an extra hour in my day to spend, 5 to 10 minutes each time. With time, first of all, you learn that you can do this a little more quickly.
Right.
And secondly, as you feel it doing your body good, it's something that you make time for. But just throwing a half teaspoon of matcha here and there is a really easy way to get it into your everyday diet.
So you could do a half a teaspoon 5 times a day.
Exactly.
Okay, that's easy. Anybody could do that.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you could get that down in 15 seconds, right? If you just mix that much in a bottle of water. However, the other point to be made is that your body, um, so the bioavailability of these polyphenols is somewhat short-lived. So while you're awake, it's a good idea to sip on some tea or get some of that in there every couple of hours. So you probably don't want to do the, hello, I'm having my 5 servings now, like you would a pill or a supplement.
Okay.
It's a good idea to do it morning, noon, and night.
Did you say if you brew tea that it lasts 24 hours, the benefits?
Yes. We have found studies, although we've not submitted any infused teas to test this ourselves, but there are studies that show that the antioxidant benefits in tea are good certainly for 12 hours and probably up to 72.
Okay.
We recommend that people drink their tea within 24 hours.
Okay, so you could make some and sip that throughout the day.
Absolutely, for the next day. No question.
That's pretty easy too then.
And matcha is actually a slightly different question because that's not infused. If you mix that into something, I honestly don't have any idea for how long it's effective in there, but my guess is that it would be effective longer.
Okay.
So
Do
if you're
you
making,
store
for
that
instance,
matcha in any special way?
well, and there are different schools of thought on that as well. Definitely always airtight and what do you want to say, dark, not exposed to UV. I do keep my matcha in a sealed bag in the freezer.
Okay.
And a lot of people refrigerate it. I used to refrigerate it, and now I keep it in the freezer. I'm not even quite sure why I made that switch. I did notice that it kept the color fresher longer now that I'm buying larger quantities.
Point. Yeah.
So I'm assuming that it's in better shape sitting in my freezer.
Yeah, it sounds it. And then what decided you to start a craft tea company?
So a lot of that was, again, post-disease. I had no real technical background in tea or even a lot of knowledge except for what I'd learned relating to cancer and my own situation. But I felt so strongly that this was something that I wished I'd known about previously, that I wanted to make it available to a much larger population. And a big part of what we do in our company, we are a for-profit philanthropic company. So 10% of everything that we sell, we donate in kind to cancer and community wellness.
That's wonderful.
And I just honestly, if I could have at the age of 40 turned myself into a medical professional and gone and worked on cancer in the lab, I would have done that. But that was too much for me to get my head around. So instead, this is my way of really spreading the message and trying to make tea available to everyone, affordably, easy to steep, and then in particular to those who really need it now to get it to them in the form of donations.
That's wonderful. Really nice to give back.
And that's a huge motivator for my employees. Honestly, that was a non-negotiable for me from as far as the company goes, but it's also, interestingly, a very I think it's a very valid business decision because it makes, I had another company before that was a tech company that really had no philanthropic aspect to it. But what I see this doing for my employees is huge. It's so rewarding to see them being at least as big a champions of our 10% pledge as I am. And that to me
nice.
is really very, very, very rewarding. That makes it all worth it. The fact that these people who are giving me their 8 to 10 best hours every day feel as though they're doing it with a sense of purpose, priceless. It's huge.
Yeah, they believe in the cause too. It's wonderful.
Exactly, yes.
I'm curious, do you have a favorite tea?
Well, I can be very fickle. It depends on the time of day and the time of year.
Do you have one you drink every morning or every?
I do drink my green teas every morning. So
Okay.
that to me, and it took me a long time to enjoy that. So just like, getting the 3 things off your to-do list every day, I got my green tea out of the way in the morning because it wasn't a huge love affair for me to start.
And that's on an empty stomach, right? I think
exactly.
I read that's how it's best absorbed.
And it took me years, exactly. It took me years to get to the point where I enjoyed that. And now I crave it. So I get up and I can't wait to get that green tea in my system.
Do you think that someone needs to build up to that as far as
I don't know.
irritate the stomach at all, or?
It really depends on the stomach. It depends on the people. I noticed that with employees and even my husband, he adores green tea and has apparently drank it first thing in the morning for 25 years, since long before I met him. And that to me is surprising that someone could have come to that. But we have very different palates and very different stomachs. And my employees are also a little bit all over the map that way. There are still some who may stay this way forever, that the first tea that they want in the morning is a black tea. And,
I see.
That's just, we're all physiologically so different, and especially with respect to our guts, I feel, and our palates.
I saw you had a bulletproof tea too, which I thought was really neat. I actually tried that.
Yes. Yeah, it's really tasty. And that aged and fermented black tea pu'er has some tremendous health benefits of its own.
Oh, and just so everyone knows, that's mixing it with some grass-fed butter and coconut oil.
High speed in a blender makes it hot. Be careful when you open it up.
Yeah. I just got a little blender with glass jars.
Oh, excellent. Oh, yeah.
Because the plastic wasn't working with the hot liquid.
Pull it out. Oh, that's true. That's terrific.
So that is tasty in the morning.
Yes. Yeah, that is. And I do love something creamy in the morning as well. No question that I do love that.
And the matcha green latte.
Yes. And that you can also make as creamy as you like or not.
How about evening teas?
So I used to be able to drink tea and coffee until any hour of the evening. I'm no longer that way. In fact, I now don't drink any tea, any caffeine past 5 o'clock. So at night now I'm drinking herbals, and we have more and more interesting herbal blends. In fact, what I'm drinking this very moment is a brand new tea that we've come out with, which is a turmeric tonic. It's really like a ginger turmeric chai. And, that, of course, has its own anti-inflammatory and health benefits, even though it has no tea per se in it. Another tea that I adore in the evening that we also came up with this year. We've been working a lot on kind of cleanse and detox kind of teas, and another one that we came out with in that variety is called Wild Chicory Joe.
Oh.
And it's essentially an herbal coffee replacement. And I love making that somewhat strong and having it at night. It really is like having a little espresso and super tasty.
Wow, that sounds good. So exciting. It's almost like a menu of all different tasty things. I saw some of the coconut and just interesting. I wanted to try all of them.
I love coconut. And actually another great tea in the evening is rooibos, which is South African, comes from South African redbush.
Oh.
And it's caffeine free and also rather rich natural source of antioxidants. And we have one that's called coconut crushed chai, which is made with rooibos. And yeah, if you notice the coconuts, I adore coconuts, so we have a lot of coconut stuff on our menu. But that's the great thing about tea, is tea and herbs are so much more diverse than what you can find in an array of coffees.
Right.
And so there really is, that's why it's easy to be fickle with tea, is because there are just so many choices. It's hard to just completely standardize on one tea or even one tea type.
Right. You can go with your mood.
Absolutely.
And I guess the turmeric is also great for cancer, too.
Absolutely.
Very anti-inflammatory.
Yep, totally.
That's
and another interesting
addition.
point that we've learned about turmeric is in our turmeric tonic, we pair it with black pepper, because the studies show that it's the piperin in black pepper which helps activate curcumin, which is the active ingredient in turmeric. But another substance which activates the curcumin in turmeric are the polyphenol antioxidants that you find in tea.
Oh, really?
So we do hope to come out with a turmeric matcha kind of blend. So we're working on trying to come up with something that's really tasty in that family. Yeah.
Really nice. What's your favorite tea right now? What did you have today?
So today I had a Japanese sencha to start in the morning. Then I had a Darjeeling black tea when I got to work. And now I'm just finishing this turmeric tonic, and I'm moving on to another black tea, which is called Morning Mojo, which is a blend of pu'er and black teas with vanilla and orange peels.
And you have them plain, correct? Because if you put milk, I read that really
That's correct. I try to stay away from dairy. I have the occasional yogurt, but no, I really don't drink any milk. And yeah, so for me it's not an issue, but I don't think anyone here at our office adds milk to their tea. Once you're drinking super tasty tea, we don't even have sugar in our office.
So you really want to enjoy the essence of the tea.
Yeah,
that's
I mean,
quite
it's
enough.
Just out of need. People don't require it. Yeah.
That's great. And then the other thing I thought was really neat on your website was your steepware and the to-go glass container with the cork around it. I thought that was really, really neat. I have to have one of those.
Well, we are definitely a single-serving society, both being individuals and oftentimes having our meals and our drinks on our own, which isn't necessarily a good thing, but that's just what our society is. We're also a grab-and-go kind of bunch of people. And so being able to make tea easy for on the go and individual servings is, yes, that's absolutely what we try to focus on in our line of steepware.
And then you had a cold grab and go
cold brew bottle. Exactly. Yeah. And that's great with matcha. You can just throw some matcha in there, and the filter that's in there is really good for helping shake it up. We have that in our Matcha Fitness kit, the cold brew bottle. And
really neat.
Also alone. Thank you. No, that's my passion, is developing new teaware, and I'm of course now working on new products for next year.
Well, that's great. Your book was fascinating, and
thank you, Debbie.
I hope that people embrace tea as a preventative tool, because it's such a great addition to a healthy diet. You're getting so much more in your drink, which is such a wonderful thing. And then it's also such a tool if you are fighting any type of disease too. It's just a powerful tool in the arsenal. So I hope everybody gets your book, Cancer Hates Tea, and checks out your website too, because the teas look absolutely delicious. And the steepware, it looks really, really easy and a great tool to use with your tea. And then the grab and go things, once you get that habit, it's so nice to be able to take it with you. So I hope people also check out www.thetspot.com. And it was such a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you so much. And, please, if anyone has any questions, you can either live chat on our website or email info@thetspot.com. And I'm always available at the other end of those if you want to ask me anything personal or specific.
Great. Do you think we covered everything? Is there anything else you wanted to say?
I think so. No, this was a real pleasure, and thank you.
Good.
It means a lot to me to be able to reach as many people as I can with the tea message. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for joining us on the Beat Cancer Answer. If you learned just one thing today about how to prevent, cope with, or beat cancer, then we have succeeded in our mission. For more information or assistance, visit our website at BeatCancer.Org. Remember to sign up for our educational email series and get your free gift. Join in the conversation on Facebook, Twitter, or Google+, where you can meet others who think just like you. We appreciate all of your feedback and love your suggestions. Please also remember to rate us on iTunes. Your positive ratings help us to get discovered so we can save more lives. Thank you again for listening, and best wishes for good health from all of us at BeatCancer.Org.